I think what ends up happening, the more educated you become here, it's like almost like teaching yoga or getting your certification or advancing in any type of thought. The more educated you become in this country, it's not to say the more retarded you become, but it's to say the more alliances and the more agreements you need to make. No one is going to necessarily greenlight or allow you to speak to a larger group of people unless you come out of a certain train of thought, whether that be a college alum, whether that be a group of people that all agree that you are specialized in a certain train of thinking. So right now what's really great is that there's a huge sweep of just political understanding taking place, and especially what's happening, what happened with 21 Savage and what's taking place just across the border. One thing that I've been really aware of is that there is a huge opening, thank God astrologically, there's a huge shift in an opening taking place where people are more open to listening and to digesting outside thought or something that might not seem like the consensus agreed upon. So, you know, this one sister, Osario Cortez, I want to applaud all type of, especially women that are, I would say, uprooting any type of communication that has to deal with politics or law. My only, and it wouldn't even be an issue, because when we speak about issues or we think about things that are lacking, it's almost not to highlight what good someone else has done. And that's not my intent. My intent is not to tear down or to create constructive criticism with what's taking place. But if we do not ask these questions, sometimes it's almost like this act or this theater. And the theater has become so grandiose, we can't really differentiate who's a major player and who's a supporting actor. So right now, you know, there's a huge sweep, and I'm not going to not be grateful for this taking place. But one thing that I wanted to wonder and ask, we've all seen this huge thing that Osario, you know, spoke about in the House of Representatives, I believe. But long story short, I wondered, and I'm sure a lot of people that study history or law or that love it or have any type of passion in anything in our past, one thing that I was keen in listening to is that the more we read about policy or law or anything, if we want to be about the people or help the people or create any type of change, it's wonderful to do so. But if we have sworn any oaths to any allegiances that are going to prevent us from communicating the truth. And a lot of people don't like talking about these things, but it's almost as though if you want to protect the people, you know, a lot of people will encourage others to become police officers, or if you want to teach healing, it's great to become, you know, a doctor or certified in some type of specialized way of thinking, whether it's herbs, whether it's acupuncture, all of these modalities of healing work. But the more educated you become in certain ideologies and certain ways of thinking, the more you realize what agreements and what comes along with. So, for example, if you want to protect the people and you are about community, being a police officer might definitely be something that you might think of as a child as a good vocation, right? So this country is basically set up for us to believe that when we become certain things, we'll be about certain policy or certain change or affect the greater whole. And what's unfortunate is the more educated you become in this country, the more you're not about the people, the more you sometimes have to agree upon something that the consensus or that certain groups agree upon. So right now there is this huge sweeping, and Osario did a great job in just planting seeds that allow us to think that something else is taking place in the government. And why are all these privatized corporations able to get away with financial unrest or financial upheaval? And when I was listening to her, you know, I wondered and I said to myself, okay, is this young woman a part of the Daughters of the Daughters of the American Revolution? Is she an Eastern Star? Is she part of Sigma Phi Rho? Now, these might not be things that a lot of us ask questions about or even aware of. And sometimes I wonder, the people that are actually doing this type of work, they might not even be aware that swearing allegiances and taking oaths to these brotherhoods and these sisterhoods and these fraternities and sororities, they are great at allowing us to meet people. That's like what the hype is. The general consensus is becoming a part of a sorority or a sisterhood or a brotherhood is going to give us camaraderie. It's going to allow us to not be so alienated and on our own. And it kind of stands for standing for something. You know, fraternal orders in this country and sororities in this country stand for something. You're backed. You have a sisterhood. You have an alum that's greater than just you. And we all know that when we're doing anything alone, it's difficult. Anything that's agreed upon by a group of people just works better. So, you know, in this country, the more educated we get, sometimes the more quiet agreements take place that don't allow us as educators to really reach the heart of the people. So as I'm listening to Osario Cortez, who, again, this is not to create any discrepancy or to say that the seeds that she planted weren't great. We all serve a purpose. But thinking ancestrally, this is a Cortez. So myself being a Cordoba, I said, wow, you know, the Cortez, thinking about her ancestors who came here, Hernando Cortez, he came here and saw this country and said, wow, what a beautiful place, and did a lot to destroy and to cause division amongst the indigenous people of the land. So, okay, a couple hundred years later, you know, this woman that kind of reminds us of like a young Rosario Dawson. She's got a great appeal. She seems young, and applauding that aspect of it. The same way there was a couple other women that were sworn in. I'm actually really interested in hearing what the Islamic sister or what the Muslim sister has to bring to the table, because she kind of seems like she has some interesting things that she'd like to talk about. So let's just say that we're allowing all these actors in this theater, in this play, to play their part and to play their role. In that, one thing that I wanted to say is that as I'm listening to this Osario, I say to myself, okay, you're creating great thought. You've allowed us to see and to understand that there's something else behind curtain number one. But anybody that has read anything about history or understands anything about policy or law knows that there's two different constitutions, knows that there's a government that took place and that existed prior to the government that was created called the United States. So what I, in being someone who's just this regular girl from Brooklyn, in listening to her, I say to myself, wow, she made so many interesting points, but why not ask the major point of, hey, is this place that we're talking, are we functioning? What government are we under? What constitution are we following? Are we following the Constitution prior to the Organic Act of 1871? Great question, because everything that took place in 1871 was kind of the annexation and the changeover. And to be honest, I'm wondering, why wouldn't you bring that up? Why would you talk about everything else except for the root, which is how far are we taking this story back? Are we functioning under the Organic Constitution of 1871 or are we not? Because to just ask that one simple question would have created a delineation as to, hey, there was obviously something taking place before 1872, and the indigenous people of this land were a part of that. What happened to the family of nations? What happened to the republic? Why isn't any gold back behind the dollar? Why can privatized corporations get away with all of this? Those questions alone would have trumped and would have opened up the conversation for something so much greater. But I also say to myself, if nationality isn't being talked about, if constitutional law prior to the United States being formed isn't being talked about, then we're kind of just playing around with the thought of policy and change taking place. And that's something that any senator, House of Representative, I also wanted to say, and this is going to throw a little people off, but, there are people that are interested and invested in change, but know that doing so within the government that exists, there is going to be no change majorly that takes place. This is why every president that's sworn in has to also sign agreements to make sure that whatever is proceeding and is taking place, whether it be the War Act, it has to stay functioning. Because once we acknowledge that this is a bankrupt society and that there is no gold backing the dollar, then we're going to have to talk about the republic. And once we talk about the republic, we're going to have to talk about what these states were before they became states, and who were the landowners or who were the title owners, and what happened to the indigenous people of this land. And I'm not talking about Native Americans who were only regaled to this aspect of I'm talking also internationally. What happened? Where were the key elements of riches and money taking place, and why? Why were, especially around 1492, why were certain things expatriated? What took place at that time that was so key in creating a separation amongst people of color? Before a certain period of time, certain terms of art weren't even created. We didn't call ourselves certain things because these terms were backed by money. So just in being someone who, and how did I find all of this out? Well, I lost my mom at 19, and what I discovered then was, what's interesting is malpractice. There's a price behind any malpractice suit. So if someone passes away and an accident takes place, but no one says, hey, we made a mistake, now you can take them, or you can take a hospital to court for, creating malpractice or for killing someone. Let me keep it really clear. You can take someone to court or a doctor for killing someone if they don't admit that there was something wrong. But once that institution admits to malpractice, now we're dealing with admittance. And once you deal with admittance, everything in law changes. And what that taught me at 19 was that it allowed me to see that someone's life could be tabulated to a price tag. And what that led me to understand was trust funds and money and inheritance and debt. And why would someone that didn't do X, Y, and Z, inherit certain things? So then that led me to mutual funds. And then mutual funds led me to understanding how certain things were set up here in this country and why we were always going to be at the bottom of the barrel. Indigenous peoples of this land were always going to be at the bottom of the barrel because a caste system was created to cause separation and to allow people of a lighter skin hue to become wealthier. So once a game like that is rigged, no matter what, no matter how you play it, there is going to be a cap. And once I discovered that, I realized, wow, as much as this country, the United States of America, exists, there's also the United Corporate States. And understanding the difference between the two just gave me such a sense of humility and understanding why certain things were not going to change. Amor, you're doing so good. My son is holding the camera and he asked a question. So we were reading up on some stuff. And I only talk about this stuff because I don't think that, it's encouraged to talk about any type of sororities or any type of fraternal orders that actually create, once you see someone put their hand on a Bible and swear any type of allegiance or an oath to something, then you become second and third to whatever it is they swear. So again, most lawyers that become lawyers don't think that they are actually representing everything but the person that they're representing. But soon as you understand anything about court law or case law, you know why, you have to swear in and take the bar exam and all of these things. So these agreements and these things that a lot of people, that just the American people that are watching, where sometimes our naivete is taken for granted. And what I hope happens within the next couple of months is that more communication takes place. I hope that more people step up and ask the right questions, because if we ask the right questions, then the right answers can begin to be addressed. But if we are asking questions that are just going to throw us into the same loophole, and again, I'm not placing blame or saying that, certain people might not even know, but I'm not gonna act like if I didn't discover this, that someone else that was sitting in a law library or that was understanding politics, or just the difference between a Democrat and a Republican, or the similarities between a Democrat and a Republican. These are the things that kind of kept, I would say, organic people, or people that really wanted to get to the heart of law, away from policy and politics. Once I understood that the game of politics was rigged, I said, okay, there's got to be a way that we can create our own whatever outside of this game being played. There is a way to create policy change without getting your hands dirty in the same cesspool that exists. If you want to teach anything about healing or the body, you don't stay in a yoga studio. You just kind of graduate from it. If you are invested in health, yeah, Western medicine might be the first springboard that launches you into, doctorhood or whatever, but it's not going to be the caveat. It's not going to be the end all and be all. Just like in understanding politics, asking a question or understanding what the disease is not going to create the solution for us as the American people to get out. So, even though all these things are great, I ask Ocasio-Cortez, will you accept lobbyists' money? What is your role beyond sounding educated? Sounding educated and actually creating political change outside of the structures that are so, as you've seen, so polluted, and as you've diagnosed, are so polluted. Why are we not taking it back, not to the amalgamated times, but to the times before amalgamation existed, to the times where I would say that there's certain principles that were upheld, that no matter what was created for the amalgamated individuals in this country, there was still something prior to that. And if I know that, and if I can say, hey, there was a constitution that still exists, why aren't we talking about how this country got into the receivership that it got into? That's all. There's got to be other questions. There's got to be a solution. So the same way we're talking about all this, I'm sure you'll still accept lobbyists' money. So what side of the butter is your bread on? Or what side of the fence do you sit on? Are you about policy, or are you only going to talk about change when it comes to the mixed sex or the mixed races? Because again, I'm not even going to say, but it's not by chance that all of these new political representatives and Senate holders and House of are all lighter skinned people. All mulattoes, all mixed people. There's nobody in the government, in political parties, in the new wave. I'm not talking about the elders. I'm talking about the new crop between 20 and 30 years old that aren't mixed, that don't consider themselves half of anything. Once people start talking about half of this and a third of that and a quarter of that, it's so divisive. What are the things that unify us as a whole? And how can we get back to a place where we are creating solutions behind a bankrupt system? Peace.